Hello, amazing women of the Ending Exhaustion community. I hope you're having a beautiful day. My name is Dr. Julie Two Moon, and for those of you who may not be super familiar with me, I am a naturopathic medical doctor and an acupuncturist. I have a background in training in classical Chinese medicine, and I facilitate a program for women called Thriving Health that is all about getting our vibrance back at every level, working from the cell level outward to all the reaches of our being and getting our vibrance back. And I also facilitate an incredible program called Rooted, which is about regaining the sovereignty in our body. And today I wanted to come have a conversation about the experience of brain fog. So many people talk about experiencing brain fog and that sort of just that disconnect in our brain, and having the impact that it makes on our life is so profound when we can't put our thoughts together and we can't sort of remember what we were doing or find our creative juice or be able to operate at that space of vibrance and connectivity. Sorry, I have a cat in the room that's being a bit randy right now. And this has such a big impact. Women tell me all the time, sometimes like they could deal with not feeling great. They could deal with being a bit tired. They could deal with, feeling out of sorts. But oh my God, when their brain doesn't work anymore, they can't do it. And there's a reason for this. I think a lot of times I've seen brain fog ascribed to so many things. My goodness, over the years in medicine, I've seen people say, all brain fog is candida. I've seen them say it's always blood sugar regulation issues. I've seen them say that it's adrenal fatigue. I've seen them say it's estrogen deficiency. I've seen them say it's thyroid. I've seen them say it's blood sugar. And so what I want to talk about is the fact that it's kind of a combination of all of those things, if you really want to know the truth. And there's a different nuance for each woman in the experience of it. I can tell you that brain fog is a brain energy issue. Now, you may not realize how much energy your brain takes to function, but it is huge. It's really one of the highest energy usage structures in your entire body. And as a result, if it does not have the energy to function, you're going to experience that as a lag. It's like I can't put my thoughts together. I can't remember things. I can't get that feeling sharp sensation. It's because there isn't actually enough energy available in this structure. Now, the reason why you may have a lack of energy inside the structure is either that the cells themselves are at a really low energy state, or there's not enough substrate for energy available. One of the big impacts here is actually the cell's usage of thyroid. So brain cells actually require a larger dose of T3 in concentration than the rest of the body. And this is interesting because T3, of course, is the active form of thyroid hormone. And so its presence allows the cells to do this beautiful response that is associated with thyroid function, which is use of glucose and sending good signals and running the energy pathways in the mitochondria. It has an association with cell membrane fluidity. And so if you don't have that capacity, so if your cell response to thyroid at the brain is very limited, and or you aren't converting your thyroid hormone, this is another huge one, you're going to experience a lag in brain functions. You're going to have cold brain. You're going to have this decrease in function. You're going to have poor memory issues. You're going to have sluggish thinking. And it's originating at the fact that the cells can't do their proper thyroid response, which is totally related to the function of the liver and the overall cell energy picture, as well as function of thyroid. But I have a secret for you. A lot of times this isn't the thyroid gland itself. So the thyroid gland may be totally functioning, relatively normal. And it's actually about the ability to transport and convert the T4 to T3, which is affecting your brain health. Now, to remedy this, like you can't, some people say, well, then just take Cytomel, people with thyroid issues, just take some levothyroxine and some Cytomel together and you'll all be good. And the problem there is that in the stress state, just trying to prop the body up with adding more T3, exogenous T3, is not the answer, because it doesn't work long term. And you can create more stress patterns, which actually can compromise the cell function more and actually can be hard on the liver and the other cell structures. So we actually have to bring up the cell energy picture. We also have to make sure that the brain has adequate glucose available. Most, I hate to say it, but one of the biggest detrimental things being propagated in the health world is that you need to significantly lower your carbohydrate consumption, which is really a detriment to your brain, because your brain needs the glucose. Now, all those advocates will then say your body will make the glucose it needs. Well, except for the fact that that's a very stressful, high energy demanding activity. And if you're not fueling your body with the adequate supplies to keep your brain warm, thyroid responsive, and functional, what you're going to find is that ultimately wears out, because you're relying on those stress hormones to do so. So we need to warm up the brain. Now, in Chinese medicine, we talk about this, and we talk about the presence of yang qi. So for those of you unfamiliar, in Chinese medicine, everything is a balance of yin and yang. And yang is the fire and the heat and the all that good stuff. And the yin is the stillness and the quiet. We need both. A lot of our female hormones are actually very yin, and we need the yang balance to keep everything in check. Well, in women's brains, the more yang deficient you get, which comes from living a life that is often too fast paced, you're not taking enough downtime, you're worrying and overthinking too much. Perhaps you exercise even when you're tired. Maybe you've done that for years. Maybe you've always got constant lists going. Maybe you've eaten salads a lot of your life and therefore depleted the yang qi and the qi of the spleen. Maybe you have been an avid ice water drinker. Maybe you don't sleep enough. Maybe you took birth control pills for ages and ages when you were younger. Or maybe you still do. Maybe you were a person who dieted compulsively throughout your life. Those are all things that are going to diminish your yang qi and the balance between yin and yang. So then you may start to find that your brain is foggy. Well, the yang qi has collapsed because the spleen got too weak and you leaned into the kidney and your body couldn't keep up that pace. And now you've got this deficiency, which actually means that heat can't rise up and permeate the brain, which means it can't create this warm brain effect, and you end up in the cold brain effect. So you have to replenish the yang qi, and to do so, you have to replenish yin and yang. And to do that, you have to nourish the spleen, you have to nourish the kidney. If anyone's listened to probably any video of mine, you've heard me say, stop eating the salads, stop eating the smoothies, stop doing the ice cold beverages, stop doing things from the refrigerator, stop eating those foods. And that alone will start to make your spleen so much happier. But you also need to intentionally bring more of that yang qi into your body. So for example, if you take hot water, you boil it for 10 minutes, you put it in a thermos, and you sip on that throughout the day. That will keep perfusing your body with that heat that warms the stomach, which warms the spleen, which helps the body have an easier time doing its job, which generates more yang qi. Or let's say you want movement, but instead of exercise, check your temp and pulse after you exercise. If you go exercise and your temp drops, you just exhausted the yang qi and depleted your qi, in which case you worked out too hard. So you need to back that off and do movement that actually helps raise your temperature and regulate your pulse, rather than movement that drops it down. Spend more time in nature. So time in nature, time in the direct sun without sunscreen on, please. Time around big trees, time spent gently walking in nature, and starting to do more things gently is the other thing. I find so often that we take our work demeanor into our health activities. And so we go into our health activities like, I just got to get it done. I got to be on task. I got to work harder. I got to prove myself. I got to earn the accolades. And the truth is that that's very depleting. Like that energy, that mindset is so depleting to your yang qi. So that's the other place to put focus. Like, what mindset are you operating at as you go through your life? Is it this I must achieve mode? Is it this push forward forcefully mode? Because if you're applying that, I don't care if you're applying it to how you take your vitamin C or how you do your job. Both are extremely depleting. For women, we need to really bring that balance up of especially the yin qi. So yin is stillness and contemplative space and quiet, like internal quiet as well as external quiet. So that might be where you go take like a luscious Epsom salt bubble bath with candles and a beautiful pot of tea, and you just immerse yourself, like you soak it in. You let yourself drop the responsibilities. You let yourself drop the intensity of life and actually immerse into the moment. These are all things that what they do is they actually do help remediate this process of the brain, this cold brain process. And they also help our mind not have to be so voraciously active. Yes, Lee, like that internal quiet, it's like, oh, because what happens then is like, think about it. We've got all these organ systems and they're so beautiful in their function. And our brain is connected to the kidney system. So when we go intentionally quiet and we're just like really peaceful inside, they all almost, I swear, I think our organs think of that as like, oh, that was like the most delicious, just warm blanket, cup of tea, chocolate cake, like whatever sounds so delicious. I think it's like how it operates to them, because what we see happen is that the more we cultivate this internal quiet, we take the heat out, the overthinking out of our head, and we drop down into that serenity inside the body. Now suddenly the brain has space. Now guess what that space does? Like if we want to talk biochemistry, we go, oh, that space just dropped the stress hormones, which actually allowed my cells to use glucose, which actually allowed them to use thyroid more efficiently. And in the dropping of stress hormones, I converted thyroid with more efficacy. So now I've got more functional T3 available, which is making my brain even happier. And we took the sort of like non-essential mind chatter out of the game. So I think another space we use up this energy and we create this chaos is in this useless chatter. So we're ruminating on things that we don't have to ruminate on, because either they're out of our control, they're not ours to fix, or it's actually like not going anywhere. Maybe some of you could resonate with this, maybe some of you can't. But I certainly spent a lot of time in my life where I would be rehashing events that had happened and almost like, rehashing it with a new outcome or a new conversation that I inserted into the moment. And that's spending my yang qi. Like that's wasting it. Like I'm taxing myself with that inner conversation. And we may think, well, goodness gracious, like that's not nearly as impactful as me working too many hours. But the reality is that it is just as impactful, because we're consuming our own body's essence to facilitate an inner conversation that has no functional outcome, that can't actually get us anywhere or solve the problem. And I'm doing it over and over and over. I mean, sometimes these things are happening unconsciously inside of us. So one of the important things is to bring our conscious attention back into our body and be mindful. Where am I putting my energy? How am I spending my thoughts? Where am I directing my brain? And when we see that, so first off, no judgment, no like, good gracious, I did it again. I mean, it's like that doesn't help anybody. But maybe gently tugging it back. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you. Thank you, brain and body, for trying to help me sort out whatever that thing was. But for right now, I think we're just going to put our attention here and direct that attention. Maybe you direct it, a lovely thing to do is direct it like into the heart for some people. So directing it into the heart, imagining, just kind of like settling in with a smile to the heart and that stillness and that heart chamber. Maybe for some other people, it's actually rooting down into the lower pelvis. That's one of my favorites. It's like, because that area connects so beautifully to the heart that there's sort of this like, wait, I'm going to ground back into my body and I'm going to expand into that space. And it helps the useless chatter, which is kind of like false heat up here in the brain, because it's like a fire that has it can't generate anything except for more chaos. It lets it drop down into that stillness of this lower belly area, which is kidney territory. And in doing so, you actually help reset the balance so that the brain can have like the kind of functional heat that leads us to this this warm, light, bright, on point place, and at the same time roots into that kidney territory, which is what governs this territory. Your brain is kidney tissue in the Chinese medicine model. And so in doing so, we just shifted out of stress response. We shifted into better thyroid function, into cells using glucose, into balance within the body. And it wouldn't just be here. It's going to be throughout the whole system. But that's also very important. So you have to build the spleen, you have to build the kidney, you have to get the false heat, the noisy chatter to even if you just bring it down into the body. I mean, you can try that, just taking your hand and just bring it down. It's actually magical. I mean, you can kind of like let it float down. No judgment. It's just like, okay, let it float down. Let that clear space be generated by my hands, just letting it float down, which lets that chatter settle into the infinite pool of the kidney, which lets the kidney stand in its greatness because it can hold that space. The kidney's not challenged by that. And then eating your cooked foods, drinking, maybe sipping on your hot water, your tea, spending your time in nature. Take those times for those quiet self-indulgences that are so lovely, that warm bath, cuddle up under the fuzziest blanket ever, and, listen to music you love, or watch a movie, or read a book. Those are all actually therapeutic actions that build these systems back into their resilience. And notice there's a theme, and the theme is not done with this, I have to earn it, I have to push through it, I have to fight for it model, because that model actually doesn't help the brain heal. It tends to actually aggravate the condition, will create more of that stress, those stress patterns, and make it harder to heal. That's how we heal the cold brain. That's how we resonate the body back into that yin-yang balance, where the brain is lovely and warm, and you get the thyroid response, and you get the spleen and kidney happy, and you can sustain it because it's not transiently held. It's held by things that you are actually able to facilitate every single day. Oh, that was so fun. Thank you for joining me. And, I love these Monday chats. We're going to keep them going with more fun topics as we go. But I wish you a beautiful, blessed day. And, this is the kind of work we do, both in Thriving Health and in Rooted, just depending on which spectrum. But it's about coming back to our body, coming back to our brilliance, coming back to this alchemy of our inner environment. This is what fuels the magic at your cells. Yes, it's things like minerals and vitamins and whatnot. But the truth is that it's the relational aspects of these systems to each other. And this is the fun part of healing. Like, this is the stuff that has like depth, and you get to play. And that's what we do. That's how we do this with the women in Thriving Health and the women in Rooted. And we're going to talk more about this week too. I'm offering a free 2-day class called Unburdened, where we're going to talk about how we transition ourselves out of this state of having to achieve, and actually help ourselves enter that state of being out of survival mode and into thriving. And because it's one of the biggest problems I see is that we're so stuck up here and in this mode of living that doesn't work, that we just end up anchored there, and it's so challenging. And if we can exit that state, we can do anything. So that's what we're going to talk about. If you want more information, message below or send me a message. But I wish you all a blessed and beautiful day. Take care. Bye-bye.